Talk Live.
Welcome to the Free Talk Cast, brought to you by the very same people who do Free Talk Live, and you can check out the podcast directly at freetalkcast.com. But on the subject of websites, good news, the change has finally been made, where if you go to freetalklive.com now, you actually will be taken to the old WordPress site.
Does this mean that the regular thing that would pop up before, like back when I would listen in like 2020, there was a thing on the front page that said listen live, and you could just go to freetalklive.com, then click that listen live, and it would start playing whatever was on the radio right then?
That is exactly right.
Because that was like that was the only way I listened to Free Talk Live. If that had gone away when I was a listener, it wouldn't have been easy for me to figure out another way, except like Odyssey, which is going to take up a whole bunch of data and make everything slow while I'm driving around doing Uber Eats and trying to listen. I would have like been really annoyed by that. And the other thing is the archives. Is that going to be on there?
Like the old shows?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if those were ever put on there or not. I will look into that, but we can certainly make sure they're accessible on there.
Back in 2020, sometimes when I was like fiending for more Free Talk Live, but it wasn't time for the show, like I'm like doing dishes earlier in the day, the live show's not ready, I would choose a really old one, like 2006 or something, because I'd be like, whoa, this is like vintage. It's crazy that like to hear like how different the world was. Like the biggest deal in police brutality was like, can you believe this guy pushed this kid to the ground, and this cop in Florida pushed this kid to the ground? So ridiculous. As opposed to like every single day that's normal.
Yeah. Well, police brutality certainly seems to have gotten worse, but all of those audio files do exist in actually a number of different places. It goes all the way back to 2010 on SoundCloud. But 2006 to 2010 is located somewhere else, and the name of it, I'm spacing on it right now.
And I could be wrong about it being all the way in 2006 from the archives on the website, but at least like, you know, I'd be going like as old as possible.
Well, in the 2020 era, definitely, we were still using the Drupal website then. So everything would have been at least findable there. Even if the podcast itself was actually stored somewhere else, you would have been able to find it there on the website. That was one of the best things about the old Drupal site, was that the search function, if you wanted to find a show about a particular topic or that contained a particular host and you searched for it, it would show you the actual results that you wanted. The search function for episodes was amazing.
So is that going to be back?
No, unfortunately, the Drupal website has been retired, and there's really, I mean, I'm sure it's possible to bring it back, but I wouldn't begin to know how, and I don't know how to manage Drupal. I know how to manage WordPress, but its search function isn't as powerful or as extensive as the old Drupal one was. But the audio player is there now. If you go to freetalklive.com, the very first link should be a listen link right there at the top for people who want to listen to. Now, Twitch does have a feature where you can disable the video and only play audio.
Another thing that I would think I will be admitting for the first time on the air, I told Ian like 2 weeks after meeting him, is that I always say that I didn't listen to Free Talk Live until 2020. But the real truth is that I listened to like a part of one episode in 2016 or 2017. And I was like, this isn't really what I'm looking for. Like, I want to learn about liberty, like Tom Woods. Like, I want to know what I'm supposed to like how I'm supposed to think of these topics. I'm not trying to just like, it just seemed like a social thing. And I even called in, said what I thought, and I thought it was just kind of like, not that great. Forgot it existed at all.
Wow.
And the thing is, if I told that to Ian, like first meeting him, he's going to think I'm like, I've been a huge fan since 2016 or 17. And that like, I really, really knew everything about him. And I didn't want him to think that because it literally wasn't true. One, and two, because I didn't want him to think I was weird. But one day,
understandable concerns.
I remember when I first admitted it to him, actually was not 2 weeks into knowing him. Like I felt bad that I lied because I lied to someone I didn't know very well, kind of a white lie. And then we ended up
and
dating.
Your reason for that is totally understandable.
Yeah,
right?
I think so too.
You didn't want him to think you were this crazy stalker who found him on the show and was like psycho.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I felt bad because I just never brought it up again. And the thing is, like, it's so funny when you think back to first meeting your like significant other. It's like that feels like two different people, obviously, when it's like been years. And I kept that like a secret for up until like he got raided and went to jail 2 months into me living here. And it was like one of the first letters I wrote to him. I was like, I have a secret I want to tell you.
Really?
And I told him all that. And I wanted to find the episode. That's why I'm bringing all this up. Because I think I know that the topic I called in about was conspiracy theories. Like, it was Ian and Melanie, and I know that for sure. But I don't know if there was a third person or who it would have been. And I know that they were saying, like, just the general topic of conspiracy theories in general. What do we think about this? I called in and I said, like, something along the lines of, I used to believe every conspiracy theory I heard. Now I think a lot of the time a conspiracy theory, the alternate way of viewing something, is also created by the government. Kind of like a take that lots of us have now.
Yeah.
That's
like
what I called in.
Conspiracy theory, that the creation of these conspiracy theories is being done to distract people from the actual truth.
Yep. It's like a second quote official story. That's what happens sometimes. But that's what I called in about. And then I was like, yeah, I don't want to listen to this one anymore. I want more. I was looking for more libertarian videos to watch that weren't, because I had basically watched every Tom Woods video, like almost all of them. And I just didn't want something that was just people talking. So like I forgot all about it.
You wanted something more instructional?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I like how Tom Woods is like, when somebody brings up to you, oh, monopolies, blah, blah, blah. If we didn't have the government, we'd have monopolies. Here's the answer to that. And I would listen to this and I'd be like, oh, this makes so much sense. That this, I ended up later on liking the format of Free Talk Live more once I had my own thought process about things going.
I could definitely see that. And the informational stuff is certainly valuable. And I think every libertarian sort of goes through that phase where they want to, I don't know, convince other people or put out the arguments, I suppose, for libertarianism to normal people.
And also to my own self. That was the kind of thing. Like one thing that was a long holdout was immigration. I was like, well, yeah, I get all this stuff, but how could you have a country if people are just coming? And then like I had actually a like boyfriend that not explained, but told me his opinion of that. Like, well, private property answers that. If you want somebody to come on your private property, you can. And if not, and I was like, okay, now I'm all in. Like open borders and all this like liberty stuff. Now it all makes sense.
A lot of people do have one particular pet issue or another to which they simply won't apply the principles of liberty, or they're not sure how, or they know what the solution is, but it makes them feel uncomfortable. And one of the best examples I can think of about that is actually dealing with trans kids in the public school system and parents being of the impression that they should be able to force the school to tell them if their child wants to transition or to change their name or whatever. Not recognizing that, one, the solution here is to not put your kids in public school, right? But the fundamental issue here isn't that the school is keeping a secret from the parent. The issue is that the child is keeping a secret from the parent. And the relationship between the parent and the child in that scenario has already broken down. The child already doesn't trust the parent with this information about themselves. So the parent has already failed, but they refuse to recognize that. Instead, they want to point at their fingers at the school system and say, no, the school system corrupted my children, even though they know, one, public school system is one of the worst places you could possibly send your children.
Yeah.
I'm
automatically judging them for that.
Right. The only places that are worse are probably Pray the Gay Away camps and Catholic churches, or whatever they're called, because I don't think churches is the right word.
I don't know.
I don't either. But there aren't very many places on the planet that are worse to send your children than the public school system. It consistently ranks worse on everything compared to private schools. And I heard
violence.
I heard recently someone put forward the argument to me that, well, of course, no one is telling private schools that, hey, this is the amount of money you have, so figure out how to manage your budget accordingly. And I was like, but that's exactly what they're doing.
And they keep asking for more and more money.
But the private schools, they raise their money through tuitions. Parents pay to send their children there, and that's their budget for the whole year.
Yeah, wait, how could they think it was anything else? That they have unlimited money? I don't even understand.
Well, this person's issue was that the public school system is being told, here's your $1.5 million. Now figure out how to educate all of these children with that.
That might be a problem if it's not enough, but that's not the case.
Well,
like plenty of people have done the math. Like if you really want to learn about it, go look up Ian Underwood, public school. He has done the math that it's totally possible to educate children with less than half of the amount of money that they're getting in Croydon, New Hampshire. So you can't tell me like, oh, it's just the fact that they have a budget that makes it to where public schools suck. But when the budget is way over what people are educating kids for in private schools, how can that be a point at all?
Right.
Makes no sense.
And there's, of course, the fact that the private school system, the private schools, they also have a budget that they have to use to figure out how to educate their children with. And they manage to do a much better job with their budget than the public school systems. So it's a no-brainer. Don't send your kids to the public school system.
Another thing I'd like to say is like, I have never heard this argument about any other subject. Like if some kid was in class, I can't even really think of an example because it's like, this has just never been a thing before. If a kid was in class saying something to the teacher and then later on the parent found out about that thing, do you think they would go, wait, hey, like little Sally, did you tell your teacher about this too? And then they go to the teacher and they're like, if you knew about this, you should have told me. Unless it's something like getting physically abused in school.
Right.
Like if you were actually like going to the principal and it comes to find out like you were being bullied and you got beat up and you're telling the teachers, but the teachers weren't saying. That's like the only example I can give. And that doesn't happen. Like, no. I don't think that would happen. But when it's something just like the way the kid is thinking or feeling, it's not that negative. Like it's just why would your first thought be the teacher knew this before me and that is somehow bad?
Yeah, I don't know what people are thinking, and they're not thinking really. They're reacting to a situation that makes them uncomfortable, and I can kind of sympathize with them for that. Like it's a scary thing to realize that your kids are going to be different from you, or that they're going to be trans or gay or disabled or autistic or whatever. That's scary as hell. When you have a child, I'm assuming, I don't have children, but I assume when you have a child, you generally go into it expecting the child to be something like you. But if your child is trans or disabled or autistic or gay or any of these other things that your child can be, then your child is different from you, and you're probably going to feel like you failed as a parent. And this is kind of a problem when it comes to these things like disabilities and transsexuality and being gay, because these are things that you can't turn someone into, right? You can't turn someone gay or trans. I mean, I guess you could turn them disabled by like chopping their legs off or something.
I don't think you can genuinely turn someone something.
Yeah.
But I do think it's possible that, and I'm not saying that the schools do this. Like whenever I've asked my little siblings who are in elementary school, if they hear about this stuff, they're like, no, why do you and my mom and dad keep asking me that? But they also go to Alabama public schools. So maybe that's just like not going on there. But I'm just saying I do think it's possible because I watched like and I'm not saying it was the public schools doing this. It's more like the internet. Like every single girl in my class thinking they were bisexual, then growing out of it. Like, why would that happen? I think it's because I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but I do think it's possible to maybe get somebody convinced, like this is what I heard all the time. And I feel like I just have a stronger sense of self. I would always hear people say, well, did you know 99% of women are bisexual or gay? And like, I think most girls, maybe not 99, but still a lot.
Yeah.
And like a way more than 50%. And I was always just like,
is that true?
Well, I would always say that's not true about me. But I think a lot of girls would just internalize that and be like, I heard that statistic, so it must be true. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing or a positive thing, but I watched like systematically every single girl I thought was bi or lesbian in high school is not today.
People can certainly be influenced, and I don't mean to suggest otherwise. Like your kids can definitely be influenced by their teachers, by the parents, by Nickelodeon television, by TikTok and Instagram. And there's documented studies that show this sort of thing. There was a study a number of years ago that showed that TikTok was increasing the rate of some mental illness around teens.
It was Tourette's.
It was Tourette's, yes.
Because there were these girls that maybe really did have Tourette's and made videos about it.
Yeah.
And then their viewers started to be like, "No, I can't help it. I'm doing all the tics and stuff that she does." Yep. Crazy.
So
we did a show about that.
Yep. They started filming themselves and putting that on TikTok, and that just sort of exacerbated the problem where people kept convincing one another that they had Tourette's.
But I also agree with you that it's not true, and maybe this little detail is what people are getting up in arms about. But I also agree with you that's not true, that if your kid was just not gay at all, that like public school teachers are going to turn them gay. I don't think that's possible either.
Right. And I don't really have, like you mentioned, it's not really a good thing or a bad thing that most of these girls, experimented with bisexuality or lesbianism. Like, that's sort of what your youth is for, as far as I can tell. So, I don't necessarily, maybe that's a normal thing that girls have always done. I don't know. And maybe it's just increased now because society is so much more tolerant.
Yeah.
But there is this.
It definitely wasn't, something that, right. Somebody would have made fun of me or any other girl for in my high school experience, ever. It was never something that would be like, "You're a lesbian? Ew." That would not happen. But it probably would in the 80s.
Would gay men have been made fun of at your school?
Definitely not. And I went to school in Texas.
I went to school in Mississippi, and officially we had no gay students.
Even my good friend for many years, we're not friends anymore, but he's always been gay, literally never had to come out of the closet or anything. He and I have had this conversation a million times where everybody wanted to be his friend. Everybody was almost annoyingly using him because he was just so popular for being a cute gay guy.
That's really good. I'm very glad to hear that.
And I'd say it's probably still the same.
Shortly after I got out of high school, there was at least one kid who was openly gay, and I don't think he really ran into any issues as a result of that.
In Mississippi?
Yeah. But everyone else that was gay or bisexual or whatever came out after high school. So I can't say I blame them for that because it's Mississippi. Everyone there is kind of ignorant and hostile to everyone else who isn't a straight white Christian.
And I guess you don't have to answer this. I wanted to know if it was the late 90s or the early 2000s.
That I went to school? Yeah, late 90s. I was in the middle school range, somewhere around there.
So yeah, I guess it would be possibly a lot worse.
The weird thing for me lately is that I have actually started dating a trans man. And for those who are unclear of the terminology here, this is a person who was assigned female at birth. So born female for those who really just want the simplified version, and has since transitioned into being a man. Non-op for whatever that is worth, meaning there's no surgeries that have been done on this person. And it's a really weird thing for me.
Because you never have before?
I have never been with a trans man before. No.
And personally, I don't even know anybody in my life that is, but I've also heard that a lot of times it can be easier for somebody who's born female to transition and start to pass because testosterone's so strong.
It is so much easier. Every trans man that there was one trans man that I knew who I suspected there was something weird going on there when they called this person a he, and I asked quietly, I was like, "Are we sure this person is he? Is that what they want to go by? Have you asked?"
Yeah,
was basically my question, because I sensed that there may have been more to it than that. I did ultimately learn that this person was a trans man, but it was subtle little hints that I think only another trans person would have even noticed. But trans men, the person I'm dating now, he's the most dude-looking dude that I know. And I would never in a million years, you're not going to spot this person on the streets and know that they're a trans man.
Wow.
You're just going to say, "Oh, there's a man." And it is so much easier to go in that direction. And a part of it is because, the main part is because testosterone is just so powerful. I was on estrogen for 6 years before it actually got rid of my muscle mass, my muscle tone. And before I started gaining weight or developing, any sort of female anatomy. And of course, testosterone will lower your voice. So trans men do develop a deeper voice.
Oh, yeah.
But estrogen does not increase the pitch of your voice. which is frustrating to me as a trans person who knows this and who knows quite a bit about vocal cords and sound frequencies and how these things work.
What if you did estrogen and progesterone together?
I do both.
Oh, because I just started progesterone. Might seem weird. It's just because whenever a woman gets pregnant, their levels of progesterone increase with their levels of estrogen. Also, I think it's really good that you're taking progesterone with your estrogen. I only thought you were on estrogen, and like estrogen dominance in a body can like cause all kinds of like cancer, especially breast cancers. And a lot of people have estrogen dominance, so progesterone will help to level it out. And what I was going to say is when women get pregnant, their levels of estrogen and progesterone rise, and that rise of progesterone is actually really good for the brain and immune system and a lot of other things. And I was just kind of like, well, that kind of sucks. I'm never going to get that. But now I can not have a baby.
Yeah.
And get the effects. So like most of the effects at least. So I'm like doing a cheat code.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. But yes, I am on progesterone. I learned about it several years ago, and Planned Parenthood started me on it. I did stop taking it briefly because I learned that the bioavailability when you take it orally is like 0.04%.
Interesting.
Like if you
I'm also putting it on my arms.
Yeah. If you just take it as a pill, it does nothing. So I instead started dissolving the pills under my tongue, just like you do with estrogen.
I have a liquid one.
Okay.
So
I
it's
didn't know
liquid.
those existed.
It can go under the tongue, but it can also go on the skin, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to experiment with putting it on my face because I've heard people say that they have cured like acne that way. And like I normally don't have acne. In the last like few months I've gotten it. I think it's stress or something.
Very likely. I mean, your husband's in federal prison.
Yeah.
So that's a stressful thing. But no, I'm going to have to look into that then, because I've been dissolving the pills under my tongue, and estrogen is designed to do that. So it's gone in like a minute, and it's really simple, and it doesn't taste terrible. It's gone. You're done. But the progesterone is a normal pill. It's like dissolving a Tylenol under your tongue. It takes forever, and it tastes absolutely awful.
I don't know if it'd be more expensive, like if you have like insurance that covers it the way you're doing it, but mine is from Idea Labs, and I've actually mentioned Georgi Dinkov on the radio on Free Talk Live a lot recently because he's like a rebel against the medical establishment. He doesn't want, he goes by Haydut, and he's from Bulgaria, and in a lot of Eastern European countries, Haydut means like a rebel who fought against the Turks back when like the Ottoman Empire was trying to take over. So
Wow.
I love this guy. I'm actually going to reach out to him and ask if he would like to do an interview with me, because like he talks all about like biochemistry and stuff. He's like a genius at that. But I've heard him mention multiple things so far where it's obvious that he like believes in freedom and living your life how you want to, and I really want to get his opinions on those things. So he sells it on his Idea Labs thing. I could show it to you, but I don't know if it'd be like prohibited, like if it would be way more expensive and just dumb to do it that way. I don't know.
I don't know what my progesterone is costing right now. It's relatively cheap because I get a 90-month supply of it from CVS. Plus, when I left federal prison, I had stockpiled a large amount of medicines, and all of these were prescribed to me by the Bureau of Prisons because...
Do they let you take them?
They do.
Oh.
But they also, as you're leaving, they give you a 6-month supply of every medication that you're on.
Wow.
So not only did I have like 2 or 3 months supply of each one of these, because they would refill them early, up to 5 days early, and then you would get like an extra 5 days worth of medication, which may not sound like a smart or wise thing to do until you realize that you can just suddenly lose access to the computers, which is the only way you have to request refills of things. And this happened on a number of occasions where we couldn't request refills for our medications because someone had hidden a phone in the computer room, so it got locked down.
Wow, recently Ian found out that somebody had hidden a phone, but because the person was they instantly pinned it on him.
Yeah.
Because he had walked out of an empty cell. The cop saw that and thought it was weird, went in there and found a phone. Because it was like instantly pinned on the guy, it wasn't a question of whose it was.
Right.
Everyone didn't get punished, thank God.
Yeah.
Just the guy.
They really need to lower the punishment for having a cell phone in the Bureau of Prisons, because
kind of sad. Like this guy wants to just text his friends.
That's exactly it. And they're there in the camp, man. If they wanted to leave, the door is unlocked.
Yeah.
They don't have to do this James Bond shit to get out of there.
Now he's in the shoe.
Yeah. For at least 60 days. And in theory, You get a shot, which is a write-up, basically. They just call it a shot. And
Weird.
having a phone is a 100 series, which means it automatically disqualifies you from being at the camp.
Dang, so he's never going to ever be... He just got there, too, after Ian. So he hasn't been in the camp for less than like a month.
In theory, several people got busted with all manner of things in my time there at Devon's, and I never saw a single person actually not be allowed to come back from the camp, come back to the camp. Like one of my friends there was a Spanish dude named Cacho, didn't speak a word of fucking English.
Well,
and I spoke no Spanish, so communicating with this guy was a lot of fun. But Cacho's an amazing individual. He did speak a little bit of English, about as much English as I speak Spanish. And there were always Spanish people around who could translate if I didn't understand something or he didn't understand something.
Do you think that he got better at English talking to you?
Probably.
Because that's just such a fun thing. I've had my ex-husband and my ex-best friend from Germany spoke like almost no English when I met them. And like when you think about that, like 6 months later, you're like, whoa, you're like speaking English now.
I picked up quite a bit of Spanish in there, so that was good. I really wish I had learned Spanish before I'd gone there, but I also didn't know that I was going to end up spending the entire prison sentence hanging out with Spanish people.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise. Anyway, he got caught with a cell phone in the bathroom there using it. And he got sent to the SHU, and everyone decided that he must have been a snitch. The SHU is the segregated housing unit or special housing unit. It's solitary confinement, basically.
Oh, yeah, we didn't explain that.
You can have a bunkie if they're from the same unit that you are, because otherwise people could go to the SHU and use it to transfer things from one unit to another. So he's probably up there by himself, this person who just went there. But the theory is that you can only return to the camp if you start snitching on people. But that doesn't... I think the camp just doesn't take things that seriously.
Yeah, they clearly don't take things that seriously. Going and visiting Ian in the low security or the administrative building, as this one terrible lady decided that it is called.
I always heard it called the low.
Me too.
I mean, there is an admin building there. That first building that you go into, that is the admin building, but the whole thing is the low or the medium.
So like, I should probably explain. There was this one guard that I'd never seen before until recently who I had to go give my ID to and my paperwork in order to go visit Ian. She was using everything I said as an excuse to try to argue with me and like start a fight with me. And she ultimately basically got me riled up enough that she told me, you can go in now. I go all the way in there and I go straight to the bathroom like annoyed and didn't look back at her or anything. I came back out and I'm like, where's Ian? So I had to go over there and she was calling and writing me up for not getting wanded, which she said you can go in now. She did not tell me. I swear she like did that on purpose. Yeah, I think she lied to her own lieutenant in that case.
I remember you telling me about this. I don't remember, but I'm assuming based on what you said, this is the person that we called the Puerto Rican princess.
Yep, that's her.
Yeah.
And no one knows her name, even though I asked the guy who was there with her, hey, what was that lady's name, by the way? And he said, like, I keep wanting to say cerveza. It's not cerveza, but it was like that, like cervenza, something like that. Okay. And then I was like, well, how do you spell that? And he's like, well, you can wait for her to come back if you want, because he was just getting annoyed that he knew I'm going to call the jail. I just haven't gotten the time to, but I'm going to call the prison and put in my other side of the story. Like, what's the word? Like, report her.
Right.
Like, this is what that lady did. So he's like annoyed because he's like standing up for his like buddy or whatever. Yeah. So he wouldn't spell it for me.
They're petty like that. But the security there is a lot lower. We had 2 inmates who allegedly snuck out the window and snuck off the property.
Wow.
And they went to the SHU, but they ended up coming back to the camp. And you would expect that after literally escaping the facility, they would by default get charged with something and never get transferred to a higher security facility, but they didn't.
Wow. Yeah.
But what the camp
I think they realize how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
What I actually meant to get into by bringing up that whole situation with that guard was just the fact that like half the time they don't want me, right. And even only one time ever was I asked to like show them my pockets, and that was only because I kind of like accidentally caused it to happen myself, because like it was like my second time going ever, and there's a man named Larkin who's like the head cop there. And
he's the unit counselor.
I knew who he was, so I was scared that already. Like I was like kind of nervous that he was going to be like extra, like checking me and stuff, even though I had nothing like that I wasn't supposed to go in with. But I have my little baggie of quarters you're allowed to bring in, and I had my keys in it, and I go to get wanded by him, and I was like, I just have this. Is that okay? But I don't know why. Like there's just no reason, but I just like accidentally
well,
like.
you were nervous. I understand.
Yeah. I was like, so I have this. Is that okay? And he goes, yeah, it's almost like he's like, oh, like, why are you even showing? It's like he wasn't even going to look at what was in my hand. And then because I said that, he's like, well, that's fine. Got anything in your pockets? And then he had me like pull them out, show him.
None of the people who ever visited me ever reported that they had to show out their pockets.
That was that one time only. And that one guy only. Never anybody else. There's this one lady, she's blonde. She is nice enough to the point that I like, when I saw her after the Puerto Rican princess, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. And she even laughed, like she knows what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like knows why I said that. And it's not, and like normally I don't even be like courteous to these guards. Normally like they hand me something and you normally want to say like, okay, thank you. I normally am like, I don't even say that. Not that I'm mean, just that I try not to talk to them at all, especially in the jail, because they're just straight up mean. And actually the low and the jail, they're just straight up mean. But these people, it's like they hand me back my ID for the day. I'm like, thank you, have a nice day. And then I'm like, oh, I just said that to a cop. Because they don't care.
They don't.
Yeah.
And it's a curious experience. But what they really should do if they want to do something about the cell phone thing is they have to lower the penalties. Like maybe just take the cell phone away, because a cell phone in prison is super fucking expensive. Like I heard of people paying $2,000, $3,000 in order to get a cell phone in prison. And it's usually some $200 piece of shit from Walmart that's running Straight Talk, right? This is not a Samsung Galaxy S24 or an iPhone 13 or whatever.
24?
Yeah. Well, it's based off the year.
That's the last time I had okay. No, like, or they changed it then, I think.
Okay, probably.
Because last time I had a Galaxy, it was like Samsung Galaxy S6.
I had a Galaxy S5, and that was nowhere near 2005.
Mine was like 2018 to 9. Actually, I think I didn't change 2019 is when I finally got an iPhone. And
curious. I just assumed it was based on the year, because I got a S21 around 2021, right after the raid. That was the replacement phone I got, and I got a S24.
Or maybe mine was an S7, but it definitely wasn't double digit. But maybe they changed it. Maybe they were like, we're not going to continue this way. We'll just do 2020 in 2020. I don't know.
So the big punishment for getting caught with a cell phone is that they take the cell phone from you, and that's $2,000 or $3,000 just pissed away.
That could be it. Yeah.
And that seems to me like it's probably punishment enough. But if not, put them in the shoe for 7 days. But this thing of putting people in the shoe for 60 days, threatening them with a transfer and an increase in security.
Losing like months off their time.
Yep.
Not off, but.
If you go to the shoe and you get hit with the shot, if you get found guilty as it happens, you lose like 40-something days of good time. So that's 40 days added to your sentence. Plus, you're not earning FSA credits. It's way more than what should be. I understand you don't want cell phones in the low and in the medium, right? Because then people can use them to escape. But in the camp, they don't need a cell phone to escape. They just have to walk out the front door.
Yeah.
So lower these penalties, and you will find that people start taking responsibility for their cell phones. But I don't blame people at all. There was this huge rift when I was there, because they kept finding cell phones where the white people wanted the Spanish people to take responsibility for them. Because, yes, they almost all belonged to Spanish people. And the Spanish people, no one knew whose they were. But they just knew they belonged to the Spanish. So the white people were like, well, we're all getting punished because of their cell phones. And I was like, dude, you got to understand, though. They would take responsibility, but first of all, you guys have to take responsibility for the snitches that keep bringing SIS here in the first place. But putting that aside, the punishment is so over the top that I would rather lose television and phones for 30 days than to have someone lose 3 months of good time, to have their sentence extended by 3 months. That's what you're saying. You would rather watch television and make this person spend 3 more months in prison. That's crazy. And it's because the punishment is so harsh. If it wasn't so harsh, people would step forward. But I don't blame people at all for not being willing to take those consequences just for texting their wife.
The whole idea of punishing a whole group of people for one person, whether it's in public school, like in elementary school when I was literally the goodest kid possible, and when I wasn't supposed to be talking, I was like, yay, I'm ready to learn now. And other kids would be talking, and then I was also punished. Like, that is so wrong and crazy. Literally just like torture to make it to where like normally this would be social time, especially for like a really social little kid like me who like couldn't wait to get to school because I'll have so many friends and stuff. And then just being punished and not allowed to talk for like an hour. That was the punishment. It could be something else. Whatever your example is. It's so like just ridiculous to punish a whole group of people for one person, but it's brainwashing. It is. Literally is meant to reinforce like we are a group and everyone has to follow the rules or you will face all these social repercussions. You don't want everyone mad at you for blah blah blah, right? It's just like it's like causing people to police themselves in a way, and that's why they started like that in elementary school.
It does, and it's barbaric, as you rightly point out. Like, I remember once upon a time, people said, I would rather 1,000 guilty people go free than for one innocent person to go to prison, right? And that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
But that's not the way most people feel about it. They're like, okay, well, we got to include some in it, because they know that cell phone didn't belong to a certain number of people. They know that a certain number of people weren't talking in your classroom, but they punished everyone anyway. That's immoral. To punish people for things they did not do is a travesty of any understanding of moral justice. You can't make someone pay for a crime they did not commit.
Yep.
And I think, I don't want to get into that. Thomas Paine makes the argument that it's Christianity that teaches people to do that because the whole basis of Christianity is punishing Jesus for everyone else's sins. And that just sort of seeps into people's minds and they start accepting that, okay, it's okay to punish this person for someone else's crimes.
Whoa, that's really interesting. Never would have thought of it like that.
I didn't either. Thomas Paine was way ahead of his time.
I still haven't read the Thomas Paine book about religion that you brought up before, and I think I even downloaded it to my Kindle.
That was The Age of Reason. It's in The Age of Reason that he makes that argument.
Interesting.
And it's mind-blowing. But we are out of time for today, so that's my recommendation. Check out The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. You can find it for like $3 on Amazon, and you can probably find it for cheap on Kindle. All of those awesome places. Definitely worth reading because Thomas Paine he also wrote really, really, really well. Like his writing, some of these sentences are just crafted so beautifully and masterfully that I just read, I'm like, that is the most succinct and poignant way to have said that anyone could have ever conceived. Highly recommended. That's The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. But thank you for listening. We'll be back same day next week. This episode for the supporters on Patreon is actually running a little bit late because we just recorded it on Thursday afternoon, but it's fine. So thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of your week.
Peace.